one of those things that society will tell you is massively important and gets talked about a lot, gets judged a lot, and definitely people out there that are going to disagree with this completely, and that's fine, of course.
Yeah.
But I think we need to start normalizing a different conversation around how many times a week is it important to have sex, and more about how many times a week are you connecting with each other emotionally? How many times a week are you holding space for each other? How many times a week are you practicing vulnerability? How much intimacy can you cultivate in your relationship that isn't physical and that isn't sexual?
We'll make it out and fall in love tonight.
I think that's the first time that's happened.
That's not the first time that's happened.
Tell me another time.
I've got it on camera somewhere.
Do you?
No, I don't know. It's happened before, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had plenty of episodes
I mean,
where
I know
one of
we've
us
had
has left their phone unmuted.
One of us.
I've done it.
I'm familiar.
I've definitely done it.
Well,
Yeah.
Today you have.
Today was the
Today
day.
we know it's happened.
Whatever today is, October something or another.
It's the recording day is the 10th.
Got to be something
the
to do
release
with
day.
Mercury. It's coming back. It's rising. It's closing. It's retrograding.
So many more planets.
It's just Mercury.
There's
It's the only one
everything.
we have to worry about.
I tell you, there's a bunch in retrograde right now. Jupiter just went too. So
Jupiter just went
we
retrograde.
got Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Chiron.
Hey, just in time for November. Right? Just in time for the beautiful thing that's going to take place this year.
Yeah.
Who knows what it's going to be, but...
We can all just like hold on and hope.
Oh, I think the majority of the country's holding on right now.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Everybody's just frozen where they're at, scared shitless at what's coming in front of their faces.
going on?
and
What's
just holding
happening?
on as much as they possibly can.
A lot of holding on.
Yeah. That's okay. Sometimes that's what it takes, right? Today's episode of the podcast, we're going to be getting into, we asked a question. It actually comes from content that we released where we were asking the question. I'm so glad I wrote it down.
Before we get into that,
Okay.
though, I just want to thank everybody for. We had a lot of well wishes this last little bit of everything that's been going on with me, and well, not with me, but I haven't been here. I've been in Utah helping family transition into like after my dad passed. So I've had a lot of love and support come through, and understanding while episodes weren't coming out, and you got that cool replay going, but it was just really nice to have that support and love during this time, and could use a little bit more while we get through this and get back into the swing of things. So thank you for everyone who took the time to reach out. It meant a lot. Really appreciate it. And you were saying,
And
I know I cut you off
segue back
so I could do
into-
that. And so I could say thank you. And
Yeah,
So-
no, it was really neat. We got a lot of love from a lot of different people, and it's
Yeah.
been really, really, like you said, very, very nice and very wonderful. And it's been a hard couple of weeks for sure.
been rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As it, it's what happens. Emotion and grief and sadness and everything like that. It's incredibly challenging and difficult. And I'm sure we'll talk about it more on the podcast as time
Oh, I'm
goes on.
sure.
But today we've got a really
Today,
easy episode.
yeah, we're doing something different today.
Yeah, we've got a really lighthearted episode. It's what do we need to start normalizing in relationships? And all of it came from a piece of content that we released, and we asked people for their feedback and what we need to start normalizing. And we got a lot of really great responses. So I'm excited to share them all with you. I don't think you've seen them all.
I haven't seen them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's fun to kind of surprise you with stuff. You like surprises, right, babe? Surprises are fun.
Yes.
So we've got a list, but before we get into it, again, this is what we need to start normalizing in relationships. There's plenty of things that are normalized in relationships. We'll probably do a follow-up episode of shit that we need to stop normalizing. There's plenty of things that are terrible for relationships and incredibly toxic and all those kind of things. So that's not this. This is stuff that we need to start bringing forth and talking about and normalizing. And the piece of content that it was mentioning 3 things that we think need to start being normalized. So we're going to go through those first, and then we'll share everybody else's and just kind of talk about them all. So the very first thing that we shared in the reel was yawning.
Sorry.
We need to really start normalizing yawning
Right,
in
it's allowed.
relationships. Yes. Not only is it allowed, but it's important. The yawns are very, very necessary. No, it's arguing, disagreements, confrontation, disputes, not seeing eye to eye with each other. That's actually a third one too, is not seeing eye to eye with each other. Those are kind of the same. But the whole idea is, I know that when we first got together, I was so afraid to disagree with you. I was so afraid to be like, I don't think that's a good idea. I think we need to do it this way or that way or whatever the case may be, right? And anytime we were arguing or in an argument or disagreeing or whatever it might be, was massive panic for me.
Mm-hmm.
I immediately thought that there was something wrong. I mean, there was something wrong, and there is something wrong in a sense when you're disagreeing with each other, right? But the whole idea is it's a totally normal part of any healthy relationship. And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's healthy to be your own person in a relationship. It's healthy to have a different point of view. I also, when we first got together, like, I was scared of arguing, and I didn't think that, like, because we went a long time before we actually had a disagreement, and whether that was because, like,
one of us was placating the other.
one of us was. I
Or
think
we were
both of
both
us
doing
were.
it, for
You know,
sure.
I definitely feel like it was me placating, and you definitely feel like it was you placating. So that just lets you know, like, how much placating was happening. We were just doing our best, and I thought it was a badge of honor, a strong suit of how healthy we were, how good because we never argued.
Right.
Right. So I'm like, oh, we're getting this right. We're doing this right. And then it became like terrified because if we argue, then it's going to, like, we're not really meant to be. It's not going to work out. And like, also, like, arguing is like the disagreeing with somebody, to not see eye to eye, to maybe even get a little heated. But we're not talking about normalizing like healthy fighting, any kind of physical or sitting there name calling and belittling and attack. Like, that's a different thing. We're talking about not agreeing with the person, and maybe you're both like in your emotion and having a reaction, because when things matter, then it does stir up an action, and it stirs up a reaction. We're not all free from reaction, even though it would be lovely if we were.
I am.
Right.
I'm very middle of the road. I don't really have many reactions to things. I tend to go with the flow. I agree with anything that you say.
That's not healthy. That's very sad.
Sorry. These things we have to start normalizing.
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
We get to be our own person, have our own anonymity, experience, perception, opinion, just all of these things. Like we're not always going to match. What is healthy is we're allowed to not have things match up, but we don't have to make the other person see it our way, and we don't always have to see it the other person's way. So having that healthy disagreement to where we're bringing both of us to the table, I feel like is healthy.
I do too. And I also think, because I'm sitting here thinking about it, like what has shaped this in society, and what shaped this in me, right? This idea that we have to agree with each other all the time and we can't disagree. And if we do disagree, then there's something wrong. And it's like, if there's a disagreement or an argument, then we need to hurry up and fix that and solve that problem, so then we never have to worry about it again. And I think a lot of times, like when you see couples arguing in movies and on TV and things like that, because of the nature of storytelling, it's very much like beginning, middle, end. And so there might be conflict. Like I'm thinking about The Notebook.
Yeah.
Right.
They also romanticize it.
Well, not only do they romanticize that, I mean, The Notebook, we've got different eyes now watching that movie than we used to have when we were young and in love. And now
as opposed to now. Now we're just young.
Now we're arguing. And we're going to show you live action what it looks like. No, but
display healthy arguing. Go.
The whole idea behind that is it's like you have conflict, you make up, and then live happily ever after, right? Everything is fine after that.
Yeah.
And I think...
And then you don't argue anymore, right? Because everything's fine now.
Right. That's the whole misconception there, where it's like, oh yeah, it's okay, but then don't ever do it again, or it never happens again.
Yeah,
or
nobody ever makes a mistake again.
Right? You fix one problem, you have one argument. It might be a big blow up fight.
Right.
It might be really difficult and hard. You might not talk to each other for a few days or whatever. And then everybody gets over it and we're fine and we move on.
Yeah.
And I think that, at least from our experience, it has been a level of healthy discourse and disagreement and arguing on a regular basis. It's not to say that we're constantly fighting. Of course, that's not the case, but do you know what I mean? We continually disagree about things, and we have to figure out how to navigate that, because that's just the reality.
It's just the reality.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the truth.
And we have like things that we work really well through. There's a lot of times when conflict has been, in a sense, it's been really healthy for us, because it brought us to where we didn't understand there was a disconnect. We didn't know that there was like even a different meaning for what was happening, the expectations or agreements that we thought. So having that come through and being able to see it from the other person's point of view, because we also listen to the other person, has brought a lot of light in our relationship and a lot of connection. And there's still things that we don't agree on and we haven't been able to address yet. We still have things that are lurking. You know, there's things that like we have it on the table, like we know we're supposed to discuss it, but like there's one, for instance, for me that you're waiting for me to bring back, and I haven't been able to bring it back yet. I haven't been able to like continue this conversation with you, and it's honestly because I can't get out of my shadow in it. I can't get to a place where I can bring it to you without being toxic. You know, I feel so upset, and I don't know how to see it any other way than like
through that lens that you're stuck in.
Yeah. And then that's a battle. And I don't want to battle, and that's not healthy. And so I'm trying to figure out, I still haven't been able to, trying to figure out how to bring this conversation back, because you're waiting for me to do it. And I'm like, I don't know how to do it, because I'm still really like hurt and in my feels and like but choosing, like, it's not an avoidant. It's trying to, you know, I love the saying, clean up my side of the street first. You know, I'm trying to clean up my side of the street so I can come to you in a healthy, not a perfect way, which I do have perfectionism issues, but I want to come to you in a healthy way, because it's so, so important that we don't have to agree, but I'm not coming at it healthy. I'm coming at it angry, mad, hurt, feeling wronged, feeling like I need to be, like, I don't know what the word is. Like, all I can think of is a vigilante. And I need to be like the one that holds it and makes it right, you know, the judge and jury, you know, that's not a healthy way to come at your partner. So I can't bring it to you yet. I like
vigilante Steph.
Right? Well, tell her that. She's like, okay, here's my list. So like it being healthy doesn't mean it's not hard. Doesn't mean that it's not scary. Doesn't mean that you get it, you know, wrong. We're getting it wrong and we're getting it right. But thinking that if we argue, something's wrong, or if you consistently, because the words are hard right now. Consistently. Thank you for the people in the back. Argue or are toxic with each other, that it's like it's healthy. You know what I mean? We're not saying toxicity is healthy. We're saying healthy debate, healthy, like, this is where I am, this is where you are. It's so healthy to not agree with everything people say around you.
This is another part that we highlighted in the reel, in the piece of content, the whole idea of you have to see eye to eye on everything. They're kind of the same thing, right? You're going to argue and you're going to disagree about things, and conflict's going to come up and happen. And then there's just going to be things in your relationship that you don't agree on. And there's not going to be a resolution. There's not going to be a moment in time where, oh, I see it your way and now I've changed my mind, or a decision that we need to make. Like, there's plenty of things in our relationship that we don't agree on, that we just don't see eye to eye on. And that was something that I also had to learn over the course of our relationship, because that felt really, really dangerous to me. Like, if we didn't see eye to eye on everything and didn't agree 100% on whatever it might be, like even just the silliest of things, like
liking
what
pumpkin
type of
coffee,
or what type of milk we're going to buy,
right?
Or, you know,
which way the toilet paper roll goes on. Like, I think we have content on that even.
All of those things.
Yeah.
It was like, we have to agree on everything and be on the same page with everything and see eye to eye on everything. Otherwise, that was trouble for our relationship. And I don't think it's, there's that's so far from the truth.
Right.
The reality is it's not healthy
Mm-hmm.
to move through life that way. It's incredibly difficult and challenging and creates so much tension. And I can feel that tension. Like I remember feeling, pretending that we agreed on everything. And the reality is one of us was not in agreement.
It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. Like I can still feel it. Like there's times it's still hard for me. There's times when things will come up and, to be able to say, is still challenging at times. And also I've got a lot of practice, so I have to watch that not everything has to be a debate too.
Sometimes you're a little hungry for it. Sometimes you're like, nope, I don't agree with that. And here's why.
Survey says no.
But that's good too.
Right. It's this practice, and it's this dynamic where we've created a safe space for us to not agree, for us to be ourselves, to not have to people please all the time, to make mistakes, to get it wrong, to try again. And that's taken a lot of practice for us to get there. And it's so funny because you can get into this dynamic in a relationship where you think you're the only one feeling something. You think you're the only one experiencing something. You think that it's only hard, for you, they don't hearing. I really thought for a long time that I was always going along with you, that it was always me bending.
Right. You were always the one that had to compromise.
Right. And that's how you feel. You were very much afraid, and so that's just my perception was very much I'm bending all the time, getting sick of it. And that was your perception. So we had this thing where, what did you say? We're talking about separation, but I'm going to say if I'm feeling one way, then you probably are too.
Mm-hmm.
And so how we apply that is when I'm feeling misunderstood, when I'm feeling unheard, when I'm feeling ignored, when I'm feeling all of these things, that there's a good chance you are too. Because what I'm feeling, I'm displaying. And so you're likely feeling unheard. You're likely feeling misunderstood, which when you have two people that are feeling misheard or unheard, misunderstood, not validated, not seen, unimportant, then they get to this point where they're both trying to be heard, seen, validated. And it looks like
You're wrong, I'm right.
Exactly. And that's how it comes across. But then when you had that awareness, which was really amazing, which pissed me off at first, I was like, not feeling the same.
Well, I think it's good. I mean, it's a good reminder because when we would get into those really sticky areas with arguing and conflict, where we basically were, the line had been drawn in the sand and I was right and you were wrong and nothing was going to make me see that otherwise. When I peeled back the layers of what that actually, what was actually going on, I was really just afraid.
Yes.
It was really just afraid that I was going to upset you, that the relationship was over, all of those kind of fears that bubble underneath the surface was really what was driving that defiance. And I feel like that's exactly the same thing that you would feel and experience oftentimes. Mm-hmm. And so it was just recognizing we might be in those fight or flight responses and nervous system might be completely haywire and out of whack. And if you're able to kind of regulate enough to check in and see what you're actually feeling the majority of the time, it's probably going to match your partner's.
Right.
You're probably both going to be coming from the same place, just going about it in really, sometimes really different ways and really unhealthy mm-hmm. ways and really toxic ways. And one thing I want to go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it's real fast. And then you is and that doesn't bypass what you're feeling. You don't then make it all about your partner and ignore yourself and everything goes aside, because that's the same going back into people pleasing. But it does give you the opportunity to be compassionate to your partner's experience and be more aware of experiences other than your own in that space. And if you're feeling really hurt, then maybe there's some compassion to see what they're feeling in that space.
Yeah.
And one thing you were going to say.
I wanted to highlight and talk about how in the beginning, it was if we had a problem, we had to fix it immediately before anything else could happen.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a certain part of yes, we've been together for, over a decade, but I think it's important to normalize that like you're in a relationship, especially if you're in a long-term relationship, and it's like whether you're married, whether you're not, it doesn't matter. Marriage doesn't have anything to do with it. It's you're in a long-term committed relationship with somebody. That means that things are going to take a long time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're going to carry conflict with you for a while. And it's not like, the argument over some silly thing that's, yes, that might be, I'm trying to get this thought fleshed out.
Chances are you've heard us talk about merino wool because we love it, and you're going to hear us talk about it again. We decided it was really important to us to start bringing in and wearing natural fibers that were good for our health. Woolly Clothing offers 100% merino wool, natural fabric, which is a healthier choice compared to the other synthetics that are often made with plastics. I've been wearing their underwear, their athletic tees, their shirts, and I stole Craig's pants because those are my favorite things to sleep in. Don't worry, he went and got himself his own pair. They're durable, they have tons of versatile styles, and it also really helps when you're trying to wick away all that moisture that they're also odor resistant. They're easy to take care of and also eco-friendly. So head over to stephandcraig.co right now, click on the Woolly link and enter the promo code Steph and Craig and get 15% off of your order. If you're ready for natural fibers that feel good on your skin, help regulate your temperature, keep you dry, don't stink, and on top of all of that, look really good. Go pick yourself up some clothes from Woolly now.
Hey everybody, you know how we're always talking about healing together on the podcast? Well, today's episode is brought to you by a new company that's going to help you do exactly that. They're called OurRitual. Whether you're looking to grow individually or as a couple, OurRitual offers up personalized pathways designed by their research experts and therapists, all with the focus to help you unlock a deeper connection with yourself as well as your partner. You get full access to not just the therapist, but video exercises and other tools that are going to help you on your path. All of that for far less than regular therapy. So if you're looking for a flexible and affordable way to level up your relationship, check out OurRitual. Their website is OurRitual.com. OurRitual.com. Head over to OurRitual.com right now and take their quiz. This is going to help you personalize the experience so that you get the care and help that you need the most. OurRitual offers an alternative to traditional therapy and makes it more affordable, more accessible, and a much more engaging process through their user-friendly platform. Right now, listeners of the podcast can save 20% on their first month. Simply use the code StephandCraig20 at checkout. Again, that's StephandCraig20 and save 20%. Their website, one more time, is OurRitual.com. You and your relationship are worth it.
How long have you been using those same nonstick pans that are all scratched up and scraped, not cooking well, and putting off those flecks of that non-scratch surface into your food? It's terrible for you. Do you still have those? We started getting serious about not only the food that we were putting in our bodies, but what we were cooking that food on. So we switched to American-made stainless steel cookware by Heritage Still. Heritage Still is a family-owned business located right here in Tennessee. They have been building great stainless steel clad cookware for over 40 years. They're versatile for all cooktops. They're oven safe, easy to clean, and they have a lifetime warranty. We switched out all our pans, and I am so glad we did. I love cooking with our Heritage Still pans, and I love the fact that when I'm cooking for my kids, my family, I have the peace of mind to know that it's safe for them to eat the food that I'm making. Head over to stephandcraig.co and click on the Heritage Still link and make sure you enter promo code Steph and Craig to save 10% on your order. Start cooking healthier for you and your family today.
It's just the realization that you don't have to fix everything immediately. That's the part that I'm trying to express, where you don't have to solve it immediately. Sometimes there isn't a solution. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the solution is we retreat and we nurse ourselves back to calm, regulated states so that we can just simply come back together and be in relationship with one another. You know, the problem, the conflict, the issue that is causing whatever it's causing hasn't gone away. Mm-hmm. And you might have to move through the next phase of your life with it, you know, whether it's a few days, a few weeks, a few months, a few years, but that's okay too. Not everything has to be solved in order for you to have a happy, healthy relationship. Yeah. And the longer you're together and the more time you spend working on things together, I think that's another big thing too, is we've done a lot of work on like some of the bigger things that all of those little things just kind of fade away and disappear. You're not as concerned about them as much anymore. And so I've noticed that too in the last couple of years with us where, we might get into conflict and then immediately it just kind of fades away. It turns into a non-starter because we've taken care of some of those deeper underlying issues that normally would have kept us in that fight or flight response that, popped up in the moment that activated us into those arguments and whatnot. So that's a really important thing, I think, is remembering that it's not always, you're not going to solve it in the moment. And it's also okay to carry a certain amount of discomfort and disagreement and conflict with one another kind of in the space of your relationship. Like how much and how do we quantify it? And, you don't ever want, things left unspoken and unsaid between you. And yeah, there's a certain amount that's not healthy as well, right? It definitely becomes, we have to do something about all of this stuff that we're not talking about. But at the end of the day, you're not going to get through all of it, and I don't think that's the point. Life and relationships isn't always just this happy, glorious, everything's fine and everything's okay. It's just not reality.
Right.
So anything else you want to say on it?
I think we covered it. I mean, maybe more will come up. There's a lot more to say. I can start off with, it's all about balance.
I want to seeing eye to eye a little bit more because I think it's important to individualize ourselves. And that's something that we didn't do.
No.
And that we still struggle with. And that means that we're not going to see eye to eye on things and we're not going to agree on things. And learning how to disagree without conflict, right? Learning how to say, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you. Cool. What do we want to watch? Where do we want to go eat? Like, do you know what I mean? Like now we can just move on.
I think you nailed it a minute ago when you talked about the discomfort, being okay with discomfort. And so much of it is not being okay with discomfort, whether you're not comfortable with tension, whether you're not comfortable with not being on the same page, whether you're not comfortable with not being right. There's just so many ways. It's where I'm uncomfortable and I want you to change your behaviors to mitigate my comfort level. And being able to be uncomfortable and in discomfort. And I can hear the argument that I would say with that. It was like, well, I'm always uncomfortable. I'm always discomfortable. Why does it have to? I don't know how I can phrase that a little bit better. Your normal you can be in a normal discomfort state and to where anything outside of that feels scary. You might be at your max. So any other discomfort comes in and shakes things up. And that is something for you to look at, and not saying that you're doing something wrong, but maybe your situation isn't safe. Maybe your environment needs to change. Maybe there are things that go on. If you don't have any more room, then there's something to address there. And it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's again, that you get the opportunity to be kind to yourself and look at what's going on. But when you're in that space of relationship, being comfortable with your own discomfort and not having to have your partner change who they are and their choices and beliefs so you can maintain your comfort level is damaging. And it's the same and vice versa. Like you shouldn't have to alter everything and change everything so that your partner never has to feel discomfort. And why would I be afraid of you feeling discomfort, right? If you're not comfortable, then you're not going to love me anymore. Then you're going to leave. Then the abandonment wounds. I have a very strong abandonment wound. So whenever you weren't comfortable, you weren't happy, we weren't seeing eye to eye, it would trigger that discomfort that I had to fix, mitigate to keep myself safe on that. And when you say it like that, it sounds really selfish, but you're talking about these wounded parts, these little kids, and being uncomfortable and trying to keep, I would rather be miserable and keep you happy. That was comfortable for me. And
it was normal.
That was normal, right? And now it's shifting to where like I can be uncomfortable. I can be uncomfortable and be myself more. And I hope you're allowing to be more uncomfortable and be yourself more, not try to mitigate my emotions.
Yeah.
So on seeing things like, does that kind of like tie into what you were saying with that eye to eye? Or
Totally.
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that the last thing I wanted to mention on it, so like you and I are on the same page when it comes to our life, our relationship, like we're on the same page, right?
With what matters to us, like our non-negotiables, right?
Yeah, with non-negotiables and what's important to us and all of those kind of like big picture things. But then day-to-day stuff, you know, we can disagree. And I think that's that distinction between you're always headed in the same direction, you're always on the same page with one another, even though you might be reading different paragraphs, or do you know what I mean? You might be heading not in different directions, but you're just not always going to agree and see eye to eye. But that doesn't mean that you're not on the same page. That doesn't mean that your relationship is, you know, unhealthy. That it doesn't mean anything's wrong. It actually means it's actually a sign of health.
Right.
Like that's the whole thing about this episode is like, what do we start normalizing? Like this is normal. This is healthy. Conflict, disagreement, not seeing eye to eye on things, all of those things are actually, I think, really critical and important to a healthy relationship. And I don't think I would have said that, you know, 5 or 10 years ago.
I wouldn't have. I definitely wouldn't have.
Yeah. I think it would have been like, well, you got to work towards seeing eye to eye on everything.
Right.
You got to work to fix things and all of that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. Everything has to be in a line together. And like there was such an unhealthy expectation and belief system that I had around that was instilled in. It's
not the case.
Not the case.
So the other one that we listed in the reel was there's no magic number to how many times you're supposed to have sex every week. Like it's not once a week. It's not twice a week. It's not 4 times a week. There's just not, like, plain and simple, period. There's not a healthy, normal amount of sex that needs to be had in a relationship in order for a relationship to be healthy. It is so varied and it is so nuanced and it is so specific to each individual relationship and each individual person. And I think that is really important to start normalizing, because I know from my life and experience, it was like, if we aren't having sex multiple times a week, then there's something wrong. We have an issue that we need to solve and figure out and talk about. Why aren't we having sex more? Like it wasn't just once a week. It had to be like, I had a number in my head. It was like 2 to 3 times a week. And ideally it would be like 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah. I was like basically every day. I thought we had to constantly be having sex or something was wrong. Or something was wrong. Yes.
Yeah.
So I agree with you on that. That was a hard, and for it's like our agreement, right? For a very long time, we met those numbers. And I was like, we are doing it right. Look how in love we are. We don't fight and we are always having sex. We are the healthiest of healthy couples
those
ever. Right? And then everything kind of started to.
Well, eventually. Because it's just not, it's not realistic. It's not reasonable. It's not, the more I've thought about this, because there was a lot of pushback against this one online where people, because again, it's this idea that there is some magic number and that if you're not, then there's something wrong. And I mentioned in the reel that you and I have gone months without having sex before. Yeah. And like extended periods of time in our life and in our relationship where we weren't being intimate with each other. And part of the reason why, there's multiple reasons why, because it wasn't just one period of time in our life. It's something that we've kind of gone through where there's been months, there's been weeks. It's when we stopped. It's not even when we stopped. I think that there's so much, and we're not going to unpack all of it during this episode because there's just no way that we would be able to. And it's not even something that we have all the pieces and parts and understanding of. But sex in relationships is something that is so incredibly, like, on the outside, the viewpoint that society places on it, the importance that society places on it, the way that we're brought up and raised about it, the way that, it's so convoluted and I think really, really unhealthy. And what's important is learning how to navigate intimacy within a relationship. And that might look like sex every day. That might look like once a week. That might look like once a month. That might look like we don't have any sex and we're just not physically intimate with each other. And it's all dependent upon...
Or sexually intimate. Physical intimacy and sexual intimacy are...
Correct. Yeah, I meant sexual when I said physical, but you're right. There's sexual, there's physical intimacy, there's intimacy with no physical aspect to it at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we would go, or when we have in the past gone for weeks and months at a time without it, the reason being is because there were other things going on. And it's not like, I mean, yeah, sometimes life's crazy and we're busy and hectic, and do you know what I mean? Your priorities are shifting to other things. But for us, it was during times of like immense healing and going through really intense things that required a lot of care and love and understanding and patience from each one of us. And so it was like, yeah, that's just not an area that we needed to devote any time to.
Yes.
Because on the opposite end of the spectrum, it was like we both needed space and time to heal the wounds that we were healing and that we were navigating and going through. And that was emotional stuff that we were going through and processing, right? The deep emotional wounds that we were trying to get through. But there's plenty of reasons, right? Obviously, physical issues, injuries, illness, sickness, all these kind of different things that would affect it. And the idea that somehow that's a barometer, you know, to gauge health of a relationship in any way. I think intimacy is important to relationships. And I do think that sex is important, but I don't think it's the most important.
Yeah.
And I don't even think it's like in the top 3 or 4. Like it's one of those things that society will tell you is massively important and gets talked about a lot, gets judged a lot, and definitely people out there that are going to disagree with this completely, and that's fine, of course.
Yeah.
But I think we need to start normalizing a different conversation around how many times a week is it important to have sex, and more about how many times a week are you connecting with each other emotionally? How many times a week are you holding space for each other? How many times a week are you practicing vulnerability? How much intimacy can you cultivate in your relationship that isn't physical and that isn't sexual? That I think is far more important than, you know, well, we're doing it 3 times a week, so we've got a healthy relationship. No, we don't ever really talk about anything, and, you know, we don't have emotions together, like all of those other kind of things that we've learned over the years are incredibly critical and super important.
And I think too, like, just to give like the other side of the spectrum, if you're trying to build your sexual relationship with your partner, to take the focus off the sex part and actually focus on those things, the emotional, the physical intimacy, that trust, that validating, that feeds that space. So if your goal is like you're wanting more connection there, feeding these other areas, not making it sex, which is so much pressure. Like there's that part, like so many times we just took it off the table. It wasn't even something that we were going to worry about, have to feel about, which is scary. And honestly, it's scary to say this, you know, because there's such programming. I feel like, you know, the back of my head is, oh, that's what happens when you get married. That's like what women do, like all of the shame that comes with that. And I'm not feeding your sexual nature. And if I don't do this, then you're going to go find other, you know, there's so many stories that I still have to combat, that I still have to walk myself through and be okay with. Talking about it on the podcast is like scary. When it comes out in the real, it's scary. Like I know it's a good conversation. I know it's healthy. And for us to be able to take the pressure off of that and allow the healing to, there's so much healing that can happen in that space when you take the pot off the pressure cooker or whatever, you take it off the burner. And that was terrifying for me. My role has been to be a sexual thing, you know, and someone like, wait a minute, like, what else am I supposed to do? It was such a scary thing, and I couldn't understand it a lot of times. And then when I got to the space of where I can take it off the table and where I can like say no, when it's okay if I'm not in the mood, it's okay if I'm in the mood and don't do it. It's okay if I just wrap up in something warm. It's okay if I feed that need for comfort and all of these things in so many different ways. There was so much healing that happened, and there's still more healing to be done in that space, because I enjoy intimacy with you. I enjoy every level of intimacy, the emotional, the physical, the sexual. I enjoy our relationship so much. And it feels so good to not feel like if I don't, there's going to be a consequence. And not that you ever made me feel like there was a consequence. It wasn't that. It's the society, like,
It's that perception.
this is going
It's
to
that
happen
program,
if
yeah.
I don't. You weren't like, if we don't do this, that's a whole other conversation of not healthy. That's not what it was. But
No.
for me, the pressure I put on myself and what I thought it meant to be a good partner, to be a healthy partner, to be a loving partner, to be an attentive, like all of that was like, am I keeping you sexually satisfied? And if not, I am failing across the board. It doesn't matter what else happens. And that's a lot of extreme chaotic pressure that doesn't allow a lot of space for me to even be in my body when we're, and so there's just like that pause, and that times when it is months when we do connect, it's amazing. And when we get back on the, every day, here we go, swinging from the chandeliers, it's really enjoyable because we're there. You know what I mean? It's not just like checking it off the list. Did I rock his world? Okay, I'm a good
totally
wife.
get a sex chandelier. Have it specially mounted.
Right.
Just so that we can swing from
And
it.
be like, do you swing from the chandeliers? Absolutely. Are you one of the millions who have completely been swept up by the pickleball craze? The type of paddle you play with is a really important choice that absolutely affects your game. Element 6 pickleball paddles are perfect for the beginner or seasoned pro. Element 6 has created premium pickleball paddles. Don't be like us and just buy the first paddle you come across. Start out with an edge in your game. Start out with a lightweight, stylish. Of course, you want your paddle to look good and be USA PA approved, just in case, you want to take it competitive or professional. Element 6 was founded by two brothers, and all of their products are manufactured right here in our own backyard in Tennessee. And with a wide range of options and free shipping and returns, there's nothing to lose. Right now, you can get yours. Go to stephandcraig.co, click on the Element 6 link, and enter Steph and Craig as a promo code to save you 10% on your order. And as a bonus, Element 6 is also going to send you a free gift with every order. Get yours today, and we'll see you on the courts. Looking for the perfect gift for somebody you love? Try looking beyond material things and get them the most unique gift possible. An unforgettable custom song from Songfinch. Songfinch lets you create an original studio quality song inspired by your own life and the people that you love. It's completely unique, personal, and it lasts forever. Songfinch walks you through a simple 4-step process to create your original song. Just tell them who the song is for, provide them some personal details, and let them know the type of song you want. Then pick your favorite Songfinch artist or get matched with one, and they'll write it, record it, and produce your custom song in just 4 to 7 days. Go to stephandcraig.co, click on the Songfinch link, and enter promo code Steph and Craig for $20 off your custom song.
Yeah, that one's super important, I think. And it's one of those that, again, I think that everybody's got an opinion on it. And we all have, I think every one of us, truthfully, I really do. I think every single person has, I don't want to necessarily say trauma, but everybody's got baggage around sex. And unless you unpack that stuff, unless you are aware of that stuff, unless you bring that stuff forward and look at it and talk about it and process it, you're going to carry that baggage around with you. Obviously, it's like any other baggage that you have, right? And just because you may not have had some big trauma in regards to sex or abuse or whatever the case may be, you still have baggage around it, because we have so much baggage as a culture around sex. And there's so many programs and stories and things that we are told that just aren't the case, especially when it comes to relationships. Healthy, connected, loving intimacy, sexual, physical, all of these different things. Culture as a whole, society as a whole, really needs a lot of work. And the more we can normalize making it completely normal to not have it, completely normal to go significant amounts of time without it, just completely normal to, not have it be the sole focus of your relationship or the health of your relationship. Like if you're having sex, then the relationship's healthy. And if you're not, then there's something wrong. Just take that off the table. It's just not the case, at least not in our experience. So,
Yeah.
are you ready for some of the ones that people wrote in about that they commented on?
Yes.
So here we go with Kathleen, acknowledging how childhood trauma may affect how we treat people we love, recognizing that, there's two parts here because they're both really good. So the first part was acknowledging how childhood trauma may affect how we treat people we love. I mean, that's the story of our fucking
Right.
relationship as well as everything we talk about on this podcast, right? It's massively important.
Yes.
And it's all of these, I say men because the vast majority of men that I've ever met, myself included, really struggle in acknowledging what's gone on in their past from a perspective of like, oh, that might actually be influencing and affecting me today, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just think that we can ignore it and move on, and it's not that big of a deal.
In fact, that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And if you don't do that, then you're doing like all of that.
Yeah. And my childhood trauma massively affected everything in my life.
Yeah.
It affected our relationship. It affected our family. It affected my jobs. It affected every aspect of my life. And it wasn't until I brought it all forth and started looking at it and dealing with it and facing it that things actually started to change. But we were on the trajectory of going downhill, and it was 100% connected to childhood trauma.
Yes.
You know, so I think this statement alone, right? Acknowledging how childhood trauma may affect how we treat people we love, it 100% affects the people that we love.
Yes.
Right? So it does need to be looked at and addressed and normalized.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The second part of her statement, which I loved, recognizing that hormonal fluctuations and their impact on women's moods is real and doesn't mean they're mentally ill.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
we could, this is one of those things that we could talk about ad nauseum and need to.
Yes.
The whole idea that, I mean, right now you're going through perimenopause and that's a whole other topic, right? But just normal 28-day, 30-day, however many day cycle a woman goes through every single month is normal and legit and important to bring attention to and to recognize. And the whole idea that somebody's supposed to just maintain some sort of like even, normal, regulated, calm nervous system during that entire month when everything is up and down and all over the place, it's asinine.
It is.
It's just so silly. And the way that it gets joked about and teased about and made fun of and all of those kind of different things, I mean, yeah, we just need to change all of that and start normalizing the reality of men and women are different in a lot of different areas and in a lot of different ways, and this is one of them.
And women aren't the only one that experience these shifts and these mood swings and go through it. It's just women are the only ones that, it's crazy. It's out there. And we also teach our daughters from a young age, it's been that way. I know it's shifting, to hide it, to be ashamed of it, to keep it under wraps, to try to always present yourself in that way. Yeah. It's really damaging. I'm still unpacking a lot of that. And actually perimenopause is been what has been helping me in a sense, is I haven't.
How has that been helping?
Because you can't not look at your hormones. I started young. My cycle started, and it's getting younger now. But so I've got a lot of practice at trying to hide it, trying to mitigate.
Do I have into your mouth? There you go.
Shit.
Oh, better.
How am I now?
Perfect.
Was it attached? Is it the peri? Sometimes they're attached. It's not fun. But I can feel it. It keeps coming up.
It's a cute
I'll
little
just
curl.
tuck it. There we go. But there was just like that cycle that it would hit. And I not only, do you get judged as being crazy and, flying off the handle and being hormonal, you judge yourself for it. So they're like, if you don't understand your cycle, and for a long time, I did not understand my cycle. I didn't even start getting awareness of not being in control of it until my 30s, until my mid to late 30s, is the time perimenopause was coming in. I just would be like, why am I acting this way? Why did I eat so much? Why can't I stop crying? Why, when you could tell it was coming, it was Like there was that time, you know, when you're going through that one part of the phase before it hits, when you're like, I'm going to tell you everything that's wrong with this. But other than that, you're trying so hard to shove it down, stuff it down, hide it away, make it not real, and judge yourself so harshly. And it's so terrible the way women treat themselves with a cycle. And it's just simply from not having information. Women are having more information now. Our daughters are learning younger and younger, or should I say, you know, that's very gender specific. You know, everyone with a uterus that's going through these things are learning more about it, and this is a silly analogy, but it's something that kind of gives you perspective on it. And it's going to be weird, but this is how it makes sense in my brain. So follow me for the journey. When you have more information on it, you understand what's happening to you, and it's easier to mitigate. It's not that you don't get reactions. It's not that you're still not fluctuating with the hormones. But I had my first experience with a kidney stone, right? It was incredibly painful and it was terrifying. And I ended up in the ER and I didn't know what was happening. And it was very scary. Thought I was like bursting. I didn't know what was happening. And then after I knew what was going on, it made sense and I knew how to mitigate it. And the next time I experienced one, it wasn't any less painful. It wasn't like, oh, this doesn't really hurt. It was still crazy painful. There was still a lot that I had to go through and navigate, but I understood what was happening. So it wasn't as scary. I didn't think I was dying. I didn't think that I was being overly dramatic. I didn't think that I was being weak, you know, all of these things that come up. So just having that information changes the way you experience something, because you understand what's happening to your body. You're not criticizing yourself for it. And because I really like perimenopause came in and had me look at so much, I started learning more about my cycles, especially now that they're all crazy erratic all over the place. But I have more information of what's happening with my body being crazy erratic all over the place. I can be kinder to myself and I'm less, I think, reactive. Not that I'm not reactive. I'm a perimenopausal woman. I'm reactive, but I'm less reactive. I understand what's going on. I can like see what's happening with my body. I can see that I'm in that phase. I have more information. It doesn't make it go away, but I have more information, which allows more space, grace, and understanding for myself. And I love that I have a partner that has understanding of it, because you've also taken it upon yourself to learn about it and understand me and love me through it. And there's times I don't know what's going on and you're like, baby, you know, instead of it's your hormones, you're being hormonal, being a negative thing, you're reassuring and like, this is what's going on in this space. And I get love from you instead of criticism. And I like, do you hear that? That's what I get to experience. How amazing is that? Like, that's
hear that, ladies?
That's more for the men.
Well, I wasn't always that way. I mean, you know, the truth of it is, for the beginning of our relationship, for a long time, it was me just kind of, I mean, it's kind of how I've always dealt with
where you just
women's
white-knuckling
periods,
it? Where
you're just like, do you know what I mean? It's this time of a month comes around and you just get through it and move on. Like, I had no understanding of what was really taking place. Truthfully, your period in my brain back in the day was just that singular event that would take place once a month.
With their 3 daughters.
Same thing.
You got it.
Right? Where it was just like once a month this thing happened. I didn't realize that it was this whole journey that took place over the course of the entire month. And I think that's really important for people to understand is, you know, the idea that it's just like this 3 or 4 day period when you're bleeding. The reality is it's this month-long experience of what your body's doing, right, to prepare and get ready for this. I mean, obviously it's all connected to procreation and everything like that, right? But understanding that as far as like the cycle itself goes made so much more, not just sense, but it made everything, I mean, like you said, it's just knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it was much easier. And it's the same thing of like, why on earth would I be critical and judgmental of you for something that was happening outside of your control, right? You're not able to control how your hormones are being released into your body. You're not able to control what your body is doing internally, right? You have zero control over it. So for people and men to be like, why can't you control yourself? I can't. Like, it just, you know, the capacity isn't there. And that I think is really important. And I think that the more grace and understanding that we have, as well as just like reshaping how it's viewed, how it's looked at. Truthfully, it's not just a blessing, but there's so many parts of the cycle that are incredibly beneficial. Like, there's parts of your cycle when you're more focused, when you're more tuned in, when you're more, able to see things and understand. Like, it's this beautiful thing. We're not going to go all into it, but it definitely needs to be changed and normalized. And yeah, men can do way better at how they handle it and how they treat it, and how they also handle and deal with their spouses and their partners during those time periods. And the perimenopause part, I mean, I just saw this reel before we recorded where it was a comedian, a stand-up, talking about his wife going through perimenopause. And the beginning of it was him mentioning how he's like, yeah, I can't remember exactly what it was. I always butcher these. I feel bad.
I think you do a really good job.
No, I butcher them. But it's, I wish, like, I long for the days when it was just a regular period. Like, I wish, we could go back to the good old days when we just had to deal with a normal run of the day period once a month, because it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been exciting. It's a fun roller coaster that sometimes you want to get off, and then she leans over and says, "You're not going anywhere.
You're like,
If I'm in this, you're in this with me."
No.
Okay.
You're so sweet.
I'm holding on. Damn right, you're holding on.
Oh, no.
No, there's another one in here. Yasmin, healthy banter, play, open expression of fears and anxieties without judgment or fear. Super important, right?
Yes.
So important. Manners and gratitude. I think it's, sometimes we take our partners for granted. And forget to be grateful for everything that they are and everything that they do. And I know that that's something that you and I both have fallen into over the years. We'll go through periods where we're not expressing that. We're not showing each other a level of respect and understanding and gratitude for everything that, not only that you do, but everything that you are and everything that you're going through, because we just get kind of wrapped up in our own little heads.
Yeah.
So I think that one's really important as well.
Really important.
This one I absolutely love. I'm so excited for this one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This one comes from Bella Blue. Women/men farting and other bodily functions.
Oh, no.
As well as body changes after having a baby. But most importantly, that household tasks are for everyone in the household, not just females. So right off the bat, we need to start normalizing farting.
Okay. I'm going to fart right now. How's that?
I'm going to edit that into a reel and put in a fart sound.
Oh, hell.
And it's going to be long.
Oh, no.
And you're going to pull that face right there. And it's going to be keep going.
No.
What is your...
Oh, my goodness. I'm so embarrassed. I can already see it going out.
I obviously fart in front of you and have from the beginning of our relationship.
Not from the beginning, but pretty close to the beginning.
Pretty early on.
It wasn't our first date.
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, that's good.
You are not in the same camp. I'm curious if you're willing to share the programming that you have around farting and bodily functions.
I'm okay with it. It's just that my body doesn't do it. Oh my hell. Yeah, it's just the way I was raised, society, like
I think
women
it's totally,
don't.
it's that, like, it has to be back from like the 50s and 60s, like the early time period where, housewives used to, wear aprons and put on makeup and just walk around and take care of the children. Like
the Stepford wives.
Yeah, that's totally where it's got to stem from. Who knows? But.
Yeah, it's deep. It's rusty. It shouldn't be a thing, but it's just always been a thing. I feel like the last little bit, I'm definitely doing better with it.
Yeah, baby, you're ripping some ass every now and then. Hey, we have to have healthy banter with play and open expression of fears and anxieties.
I'm going to show you ripping ass. Like, oh my God. It's just like walls are down.
Yeah, it's a normal, it's a thing, right? It's just something that doesn't need to be anything other than what it is.
It really doesn't. And honestly, it would be my life would have been, I would have had a lot less belly aches if I would have just Shrek'd this whole thing and better out than in. But yeah, it was, oh my gosh, trying to always run to the bathroom and like clinch run.
Yeah, I hate holding on to farts.
I know.
It's so terrible when you have to fart and you just decide that it's not going to happen. I have a story I'll tell you. I don't know if I've ever told you this one before, but way, way back in the day when I was a teenager in high school, way back in the day. And I was on a date and we were driving home and there was a certain stretch of road that drove past I don't think it's a dairy farm. Anyways, there was a stretch of the road where there were tons of cows.
Okay.
And depending upon the wind that day or whatever the case may be, right, you would get this wonderful odor of cow shit, of manure that would come wafting through the car. So I was able to time it to where once we got into that section of road, I was able to just go, oh. And I can't remember if I had the radio going or something, right? Or
Turn it up real loud.
Yeah. So something was definitely covering up because it was loud.
Yeah.
And it was smelly, but lucky for me, we were driving past the cow shit. So
I have a theory.
Let's hear it.
I have a theory that you had that turned up and she was like, thank God we're almost to it. And you're like, it was smelly because you both were just ripping ass at the same time. You're like, here it is. Here's my chance. Oh my gosh. I learned that you cannot let one slip if you were on like a firm surface, like a hard surface or like a vinyl or something, because then that shit just ricochets and echoes.
Bounces
and everybody
right
knows. And then you're not even playing it cool. Like, what was that? It scares the shit out of you. So you're like, and everybody knows because you can't hide it. You're so like, you got to do it on a squishy seat. Squishy seat.
Yes. Let's start farting.
You did not laugh, and now I'm embarrassed.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry.
Laugh, I'm funny.
Say it again.
Oh my God, no.
Hold on.
Squishy seat. You're just like, yeah, that's weird.
Back to Craig.
Okay, what else you got? Let's get off farts.
Okay. Let's get off farts. I just got on farts. Neely Max, going to bed angry. Sorry, this one comes from Neely Max. Going to bed angry. Someone told me never go to bed angry when I was younger, and I've unintentionally escalated arguments when one or both of us just needed to sleep/process.
Yes.
We are huge proponents of going to bed angry.
Yes, Neely.
Just fucking push pause on those conversations. You and I have never had we haven't done this for years because we changed our perspective on this a while back, and I'm so grateful that we did, because we would stay up until the wee hours of the morning trying to hash out really stupid things.
Like Neely said, and escalating it beyond because we're tired, and making it bigger because we're tired.
Yes. And the everybody's argument against this idea, because you always get the same argument. We've done content around this over the years too. We used to post stuff about this all the time because truthfully, after about like 7, 8 o'clock at night, we do our best to not approach topics that are difficult. We do our best to not, like if something comes up that's hard, that's triggering, if we're processing something, like we just have this understanding that we're not going to go into things because your nervous system isn't ready for it. You're tired. Tired alone is enough, right? But on top of being tired, you're probably stressed. You've probably got other things on your mind. You've all of these other things. You're trying to get ready for bed, especially if you've got little kids. Like if you've got small kids, it's, our youngest is 18. We don't have to worry about kids being little and bedtime and stuff anymore. And we still struggle with it. I can't imagine what it would be. I mean, I can because we've done it, right? It's so freaking hard. Yeah. And the idea that somehow you're going to save disagreements and arguments until bedtime, your nervous system is fried. You have next to, like, if we look at the full capacity of being able to access all of your thoughts, all of your emotional health, you just are so limited at those time periods. So why on earth would you try to hash out big issues at that point? And people do it over and over and over again. And society still perpetuates this idea that you can't go to bed angry. Excuse me. Thank you, babe. This is me trying to fart. I'm holding in a fart. You can't go to bed angry because what if that person doesn't wake up? Then the last thing that's going to happen is that you're going to have a fight and an argument. And it's a valid fear in the sense that I'm sure we can all relate to that fear. That's a legit fear that people all have. But you have to be able to mitigate and manage that fear because, you know, if we carry that thought process out, then it's never safe to argue because you never know what's going to happen.
It can happen at any time.
So we might as well just never argue because the other person may end up dying when they walk down the hallway. So we're big proponents of going to bed, not tired, going to bed when you're tired, but going to bed when you're angry and just spending time to discuss really like when you go to bed angry and talk about it in the morning, right? Yes. Otherwise, you're not solving problems at 9 at 10 at midnight at 3 in the morning. You're just not.
Yes.
All you're doing is like more harm oftentimes.
Yeah. And then you also can be, and that's what, like you said, that more harm is where you're handling an argument in a healthy way. You're just not agreeing with each other, but you can push yourself to the point of where you're saying things you regret. You're saying like you don't want to slip into toxicity because you've pushed yourself beyond a point. So going to bed angry and allowing yourself to regulate so you're not being reactive. And like we've all said things that we regret. Like we do a pretty good job with not going off on each other and not calling each other names. And that's terrible. That's really, really unhealthy. But that'll be a lot of the excuses that we see, like, then you just said terrible things to them. I'm like, well, why are you saying terrible things to your partner? That's another issue that needs brought up if you're fighting in that way. So allow yourself to go to bed, allow yourself to be angry, allow yourself the discomfort of maybe they're angry at you and see how that feels in the morning. See, like it's not going to magically go away. There's still stuff, but you're going to be in a much better space.
Yeah, and this one's not on here. They didn't mention this, but I think it's important to mention as well. Another thing that we should normalize in society and in relationships is sleep and how we sleep and where we sleep. And sleep is one of those things that in the last few years I've become super passionate about. I was trying to think of the right word. That took me way too long to come up with the word. You prioritize your sleep. I do. I prioritize my sleep. And it comes, I've listened to countless podcasts where people are talking about how important sleep is for all these kind of different things. But the thing that stuck out to me, and I don't remember which podcast what it was on because it's been years and years and years, but it's for longevity. Like if you aren't getting those good 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep a night, ideally somewhere around 7 or 8 hours, you're going to live less. It's taking time off, off of your life. So when I heard that, I'm like, oh, I want to live a really long time. I need to sleep. And it makes total sense. Sleep's all about recovery and our body needs it, right? So we have made shifts in our sleeping arrangements where we got 2 separate beds that we didn't get 2 separate beds that we pushed together. We bought one of those adjustables. Yeah, we bought an adjustable mattresses and stuff like that, right?
It's adjustable.
And truthfully, it sucks. We hate it. It's so frustrating.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because there's a big crack in the middle and it's difficult. We long for the days where we had one huge mattress instead of 2 little mattresses. However, that's only because it makes like cuddling difficult and it makes intimate time more challenging. Right? One of us is always in the crack.
Somebody knees falling through. We did help by like binding the
crack.
the legs,
the frames,
the frame legs, so that it literally doesn't and you can just fall on
Somebody
the floor.
Doesn't fall into the middle
So
of the Grand Canyon during the lovemaking. But if you don't sleep in the same bed, if you sleep in separate rooms, like all of those things, we just need to throw out the big umbrella. Not just now on the podcast, but in general in society. Do what you fucking want to do. Do what works for the two of you.
Yeah, what works in your relationship.
Yeah, that's what's important. Especially, I think, if it comes to prioritizing sleep, man, that is so massively important.
I'm going to take a nap right now. I'm tired.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that have to have, sleep machines and sound machines and earplugs and all of these kind of different things, the accoutrements that people need in order to go to bed at night. And if that's affecting how your partner sleeps or how your partner sleeps affects you, then I think it's totally fine and normal and healthy to sleep in separate rooms if that's the case and if that's what's needed. You know, I think we just need to start normalizing that.
Yeah, you're not doing anything wrong. You're not failing in the relationship. There's
it's not an indication that there's anything wrong or off or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we got one more.
Yeah, let's do it.
Stephanie G, and it's a simple one.
Okay.
Let's normalize personal time.
Yes.
Right? We have...
I love these.
They're good.
They brought them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Normalizing not just personal time, I think, but also having a life / space, you know, having yourself separate from the relationship, having the, what's the word? The differentiation, right? Being able to have personal time and space, and
you don't have to do every single thing with your partner.
Yes.
Yeah, you get to have different likes. You can have similar likes. You can have things you do together. That's a good thing. But you do not have to always like the same things and do the same things and do everything together and spend every time together. Like, you need your time. You need your personal time.
So important.
You need your alone time.
Yeah, we need more.
Your me time.
I think you and I need more practice at that.
We do.
Not right now.
I mean, we did just have an
extended period of time.
But like, I genuinely recharge with my personal space.
Yeah, with your alone time.
And it's so hard. Like, just like use the house, for example. It's like really finding a way to get that space. It's hard for me to enjoy that space, to actually make that time. Because the first thing I usually do is I want to do the dishes. I want to clean. I use the time by myself to clean the house because I feel like it's hard to do when there's people there. And so, like, to have that time when I get my alone time, whether I'm taking a bath, whether I'm going for a drive, whether, you know, I like to read because it takes me someplace else. You know, it gives me a break. But I show up so much more like presently and effectively and compassionately when I've had like a time out, when I've had some time to myself that I haven't had to spend checking things off a list. It's good for our relationship. I show up better that way, and it's good for me. I'm healthier. I'm happier when I have that independence, and I feel like you're the same. You know, we're better together when we have our time to ourselves.
Yeah,
we show up better for each other in that space.
Yeah. And speaking from experience, we've gone through all sorts of phases in our relationship where it did not feel that way, where it felt dangerous and it felt, you know, like something was wrong, and, you know, all of these things around what's a healthy relationship. And I think a lot of times if you're in relationship, you know, there's this underlying program that society has placed where you do have to spend all your time together. And, you know, it's really common in the beginning of relationships too, to like stop all other social activities with groups of friends and people and places and things, and just get so focused and dialed in and spending all your time with that same person, that one person. And we did that for the most part. And I think that's fine, right? Whether that's super healthy or not, I'm not necessarily picking that apart in this moment, but
it gets to be exciting and exclusive for that time. You get to do that. It's just staying that way.
Yeah, long term, you really need to have a healthy life outside of your relationship. Yes. And like you said, it contributes back and forth.
Yeah.
So I love it, babe. Those were good.
Those were great.
If you have more, if you've got more ideas on how we can not differentiate, that's also helpful. But normalize. What do we need to normalize in relationships? I forgot what we were talking about for a second. Farting is important, people.
Yes. Fart and alone time.
Fart by yourself in a room.
See, that's what I try to do. So I run away.
What else do we need to normalize in relationships? Let us know. You can hit us up. You can either write in, email us, go to stephandcraig.co, click on all of those buttons there, or just hit us up on social and let us know. And we'll throw them in another episode at some point.
Yeah, because it's fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
Okay.
I love you, baby.
I love you too.
I'm glad we're back to podcasting.
I'm glad we're back to podcasting too. I've missed it. Yes.
It feels really good. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you all next week or next day or tomorrow.
Next time you hit play.
Sometime in the near future.
Expect the best.
Plan for the greatest. I was totally forgetting. I forgot that.
It's okay. I had it.
I totally
I
forgot
had
that.
it.
Excellent.
We got a wild ride. Wait and see, you and me. We were meant to be.
We want to make something perfectly clear. This podcast is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as a substitute for professional advice. We're sharing with you our own personal experiences and insights, things we have found to be helpful on our healing journey. But we are not licensed therapists. If you need help, it's important to seek out a qualified professional. Remember, we believe that we all do better when we heal together. See you soon.